Good day and welcome to today's section of our 30 days of code challenge brought to you by Codeflex. Today we'll be looking at a very key concept in CSS, which is CSS Box Model. So we are going to be looking at CSS Box Model today, in as much as we have been stealing some properties from CSS Box Model to use, but we are going to formally be introduced to CSS Box Model today. Now, when we say CSS Box Model, what comes to our mind should be a concept. CSS Box Model is a concept that that gives information about how elements are spaced, how elements occupy space in our web page, right? That's why it's referred to as a box, like a box model. Every element in our web page occupy something that looks like a box, right? It is that box that is referred to as CSS box model, and that is what we are going to be looking at today, right? So there are some properties that are peculiar to CSS box model, right? Properties like padding, which we have been using, properties like margin, which we have also been using, properties like border, which we have been using. They are all properties of CSS box model, right? So, how does CSS box model really talk about each element of a web page being seen as a box? Now, I would like to quickly get a CSS box models picture so that we can use it to explain. Let's see box model. And I want to get this one from W3 schools, right? So let's see, okay? Yeah. So this is what we mean by CSS box model. This is how CSS box model is actually described. Now, if you look at it, there are there are concepts that are peculiar and concepts and properties that are peculiar with our CSS box model. Now, if you look at this, you will see content, you will see padding, and you will see border, then you will see the margin. Now, what this simply means in summary is you are going to, whenever, like I said, I remember when I was introducing us to HTML, I told us that every tag has a open and is has a open tag and a closing tag, right? When a tag is open, in most cases you have to close it for tags that are paired, although there are some tags that are not paired. But I want to use tags that are paired, right, for easy understanding. So what it means is when and I could remember that I also told us that when a paired tag, sorry, contains a content, when there is a content in between paired elements, the three of them, both the opening tag, the closing tag, and the content are referred to as an element, right? So every HTML element has a content in summary, right? That's what it means. So CSS box model is telling us now that HTML elements are displayed in form of a box. And now it's explaining further that these are the these are the these are the comp these are the components of the CSS box model. These are the components. What are the things that makes up this box that we are talking about, that elements are on our web page? What are the components? What are the things that makes up this box, right? One of it is the content. The content itself the content itself. That means if I have a div, for instance, and I place a p inside, right? The content of that div is the p, right? It is the p that the div is containing. So that p becomes a content. So if we are looking at boss model and we are picking div as an example, we are going to be having something that looks like a the p tag inside as this particular content, just as it is that we are seeing on our screen. Then the next thing to the content is the padding. So when we say padding, we are saying space between content and the border, between the content of that particular element and the border of that element. You know, usually border surrounds, when you give an element a border, you expect it to surround that particular element. So the space between the content of that element and that border is the padding, right? Why the space between the border and other elements outside of the particular element is the margin. So margin is outside while padding is inside. So that's exactly what this particular image we are seeing on the screen is describing, nothing more than that. So CSS HTML elements are viewed like this on the web page, right? They have a content, the content have padding, and then from padding you get to the margins, and then outside the margin you have you have the borders, and outside the borders you have the margin. Now let's look at something. This is header. I want to come inside here and say main, and inside my main I want to create a section. I want to call this section hero, right? I want to give it a class of hero. Now, by now, you know why I'm giving it a class of hero, because I'm going to certainly, in a web page, I'm going to certainly have more than one section. So it's I'm giving this particular section a mark, like I explained in our previous section. I'm giving it a mark, and the mark I'm giving to it is hero. So that I will be able to select this particular section with this mark to separate it from every other section. Assuming I did not put any mark, right? If I want to send a message, if I want to say apply particular style to section, it's going to apply to all the sections, because no section is more section than any other section, right? They are all sections. So the style is going to apply to all sections. But because I have given a particular section a mark of hero, right? By giving it a class name, I can now select that particular section with that mark, which is the hero class that I gave to it. And when I apply style, it's going to apply to only that section, right? So I'm going to call this hero, and in this my hero, this particular section, I'm going to let it have border, right? So I'm going to put something inside. What should I use? Let me just use image. Let me add an image. So let me get an image from the internet. Let's see. Let's use Splash. Sorry, right. This is on Splash. Let me just get an image from Splash. Any image, any image, any image. Okay, let me take this. Copy the address. So I'll put it here. So let's go back to our page, right? You see that we have an image here, and by default the image is assuming this the width that it comes with, right? So what I can do now is I am done. This is just all I want. I just want to use this to explain boss model, right? So I'm going to my CSS and apply styles to my word, to my section, to this particular section, hero section that I have created. So I'm going to select it using the hero class, and you could remember that I said in the last section that when you want to select an element using a class name, what you do is precede the element with what? With a dot. So that's exactly what I have done here. So I want to give this a border. I want to give it a border of 2px solid. Oh, sorry, red. I want it to be very visible, right? So you can see that our image is overflowing, right? So I'm going to go into the hero, right? I'm going into the hero and selecting the image, the img tag in there, right? So what I'm doing now is I'm selecting with both class name, and I'm selecting with um um element name. What element name am I selecting? Img, right? Img is actually an element if you look at it here. Sorry, a tag, but it's now containing content, so it's still an element, so you are not too wrong. So I'm selecting with tag name, then I'm also selecting with class name. So I selected the section with a class name, and I'm selecting the image with a tag name, right? So I want to give it a width because it's overflowing, right? Because it's overflowing, it's assuming the default width that it comes with, right? So I want to give it my own width. I want it to fill whatever screen we have, right? So I'll give it a width of 100%. So you see that is now assuming the width of the screen, right? The width of its parent, not the screen, sorry. So it's going to adapt to that width of its parent container, which is the hero. So it's no longer overflowing. Now we have this, and the height is also not full. So we can also give it a height of that. In most cases, we don't need it though, but I just want it to be full, right? It still didn't full though. Okay, but let's just continue. Let's see. Now you can see that what is the content of this hero section? The hero section only have one content, which is the image, right? Now, um, from the box model which we have seen, we have content, we have the next thing is padding, and the next thing is border. Then the last outside the content, outside the border, we now have the margin. Now let's see how this applies to our styling, right? So what I'm still looking at is the hero section, right? Now I want to give it a padding. So since they say the padding is going to be between the border and the content, which is the image. The image is the content. Now let's apply a padding and see. Let's see 20px and see how that works. Now look at what we have. Can you see what we have? We now actually have a space between the content and the border. So the padding is the space between the content and the border. Is overflowing? Yes, I am saying that we are going to fix that. There's a reason why it's overflowing. Now, they also told us that now we already have the border, which is the next after the padding. Now the margin is the space between the border and every other element. That means if I have an element um outside my section, there's going to be this particular there's going to be a space of the same size that I am giving to my margin. And mind you, padding are usually transparent. Padding and margin are usually transparent, right? You can see it's a white space there because the default background there is white, right? So it's actually transparent. If I decide to come here and have my body, because it's the body that's actually having that background, and give it a background of black, you will see that the padding will also assume that. So the padding really do not have color, is just transparent, right? So let's take that off. So now let's also see what margin does by also giving it a margin here. Margin of what? Let's say 20 px2, right? What happened? Oh, sorry. I'm giving it to image. I gave it to image actually. Sorry. I even actually gave even the padding to image. Sorry, the padding is supposed to be in section, right? It's still going to work almost the same thing, but because the image does not have border, I didn't give the image border, we were not seeing it, right? It was applying to the image as well, but there's no border, so we can't see it, right? But I just want to do it in section. Right. Now you can see what the boss model has explained, right? Look at the content, and between the content and the border you have the padding, and between the border and every other element you can see that the element house the next element that is close to the section is the header, because main does not have any style. We did not apply any style to main, so main is not visible. The next thing that is visible there is the header, and you can see that the margin is between the section, between the border and the header, right? And the sides. So right, that is just what box model is all about. It tells us about how elements are seen on our web page, how they behave like a block, right, on our web page. Now, you if for instance, if I give my section a width. Now I've given it a width of, okay, I gave my image a width of 100%. Let us assume that I give my section, because the reason why when I was giving my my image a width of 100%, I said it's going to assume if I give 100%, width of 100% means take take the full width of your parent container, and the parent container there is hero, of which by default is 100%, and that's why you are seeing it occupying the whole screen. So if I decide to give my hero a width of absolute value of, like, let's say 400 px, right, you are going to see that it's now smaller, but the image is still assuming 100% of that width. 100% is a width you are going to attain in relation to your parent container. So whatever your parent container is, you are going to assume a full of that width. That means you are occupying 100% width, right? So now, if you look at what is going on here, we have this image, and we have this hero section, and we have paddings and margin added to it. Now there are different ways of adding padding, margin, and borders, but I will not want to take them one after the other. I will just pick one and explain it, and you apply the same thing to the others. Now, this padding that you see here is a short form of applying padding. By default, I should say, oh, sorry, I, I also deleted margin. So by default, I should say padding top, right, of 20 px. You see that apply to only the top. And then I'll say padding um, bottom, sorry, padding bottom, I'll say 20 px, and you see it apply to bottom as well. Where is it? Okay, you see it apply to bottom as well. These are the usual way of doing it, but the short code, they only work when I need my padding in one side, like, right? Assuming I need padding only at the top, I can say padding top, right? Just that. But because I need it in all the side, I use shortcut. And what's the shortcut that I use? I just use padding and I applied a single value, right? Let me just take all this off, right? I applied a single value. Now, when I applied a single value to padding like this, what it simply means is add 20% padding to the top, add it to bottom, add it to left, add it to right. So that is what that means. But when I specify that it should only be left, it will be for left. And if I specify that it should be right, it should be right. Top to be top and bottom will be bottom. Then there is also another way of me applying this. I can still use this and give it two value. When I give two value to my padding, the first value is going to treat the vertical axis, while the second value is going to treat the horizontal axis. When I say horizontal axis, I'm talking of left, right, and when I say vertical, I'm talking of up and down. So let's see how that works. If I give it two value now, 20 px is the same thing. So it's almost like me saying top to bottom 20, padding top and padding bottom 20 pixel, padding left, padding right 20 pixel, right? But assuming where this is useful is assuming I want both sides to have paddings that are different from top and bottom, I can just apply that here and say top and bottom should have padding of 20 pixel, while left and right should have padding of 40 pixel. Now you will see that top and bottom still have their padding intact, while left and right have additional padding, right? Meanwhile, I can still apply three values. When I apply three values, the first one will be top, the second one will be left and right, and the last one will be bottom. So if I see um here should be 20 px like this, right? Why is this thing slow? Okay, if I say this should be 20 px, you see that it's still the same thing. What it means is top should be 20 pixel, left and right should be 40 pixel, and bottom should be 20 pixel as well. Now you can see that in action when I decide to remove 20 and change it to 10. You see that bottom has reduced, right? It's no longer having the same padding as the top. That's to tell you that the last one represents bottom, the first one represents top, while the middle one represents left and right. So if I change that and also come to the middle one and change it to 60, you see that left and right increases the more, right? So that's what it is. Then if I decide to add the last one, right, and make it four values, then that means the first value is top, the second one is right, the third one is bottom, and the fourth one is left, right? So if I decide to come here and give it 20 px, this becomes the left hand side. So the first one is top. Top is 20 pixel. Let me change it to 50 to differentiate all of them and also give this one 30, right? So you can see that the first one is 50, which is nearly as big as the right. Let me make it really visible. 100. Good. You say that the top one is 50, which is nearly as big as the right, and the next one, which is bottom, is 20 pixel, which is smaller, the smallest among all of them. And you see that the next one is the last one, which is left, 40 pixels. So this same way I have applied values to my padding are also available for margin and border, right? Because I can also have border top. I can have border top, I can have border left, I can have border right, I can have border bottom, right? So I can, when I apply just a single value and just select border. Whatever I apply is going to apply to all the sides of the border. But when I single out a particular side and say border left, border right, whatever style I'm going to apply is going to apply to the style that I have specified. The same thing with margin, right? So we wouldn't be wasting much time on that. So let's just take this back to 20px. All right. So virtually this is all that CSS Box Model is all about. But there's one other thing I would like to quickly talk about, right? CSS adding padding and margin, adding padding and border to our elements actually changes the actual size of that element. Assuming you can see that I gave my hero section a width of 400 pixel. Now this width of 400 pixel, I now went further to add padding, right? I went further to add border. Border is 2px, padding is 20px. All these are going to add to my element size. So therefore my element is no longer 400 pixel, which I have stated there, is now 400 pixel plus margin plus padding, which makes it different from 400 pixel, which makes it bigger than 400 pixel, right? What I mean is this: if I remove this padding, now take note of where the border has stopped. Now if I remove this border size, for instance, sorry, if I take it off, you will notice, you may not be able to notice that, but if, okay, let me leave it on and take padding off. If I take padding off, did you notice that there is reduction in the size? Okay, look at it. Look at where it's getting to with the border. Now, when I take it off, you see that it has reduced. That's to tell you that my padding and my border actually increases the size and changes the specified 400 pixel width that I have given to it. Now, there's a way we can fix this, and there's another concept called box sizing. What box sizing So when we specify box sizing property in our element, we can now say, okay, we want our size to be padding and border inclusive, right? So what I mean is, if I give my element 400 pixel, I want that 400 pixel to include both padding and border. So we have to specify that. If not, by default, this is how it's going to behave. So if I come to my element, for instance, and I give it box sizing of border box, so I'm saying everything should stay within the border, right? Every of the addition of padding should be inside the border. It shouldn't extend, it shouldn't exceed the border. So now if I come here and uncomment my padding, did you see that there is no increase? The increase did not exceed the border, right? Instead, it compresses my content, making sure that my element width is 400 pixel. Does it make sense? I hope I'm making sense, right? So border box, um, border box, that's what border box does. It makes sure that every of your padding and border is contained within the specified width of that element. It doesn't add addition. It doesn't change your element's width unnecessarily, right? So most of the time it's important we apply this box sizing in reset section so that we don't have this default box sizing having us to having allowing us to have issues with our layout, right, later in the future when we are writing bigger code, because you just had padding and you just get unnecessary size added to your element, making your layout very unpredictable, right? So what we usually do is to come to where we reset padding and margin and also put box size in there in our resets and make it border box. So that resets it. I can now take it off here, and this element will inherit what it's having up there in the universal selector. So that is that about CSS box model. Thank you for being part of today's section. Please do not watch this alone. Like, share, and comment, and I will see you in the next section. Bye.